Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Wicked. Wicked is a 2024 American musical fantasy film. It is the first of a two-part film adaptation of the stage musical of the same name by Stephen Schwartz and Winnie Holzman, which is loosely based on the 1995 novel by Gregory Maguire, which is based on the L. Frank Baum's 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The film tells the origin of Elphaba, the misunderstood green-skinned girl who becomes the Wicked Witch of the West, and her complicated friendship with Glinda, the Good Witch, revealing the political and personal struggles that shaped their destinies in the land of the Oz. Personally, I am not a huge fan of musicals, but that being said, I found a lot of aspects of this movie enjoyable. So let's talk about it with the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? Now, the world that this story takes place in is obviously in the world of Oz from The Wizard of Oz, and I enjoyed the depth that they brought to this world. I have not surprisingly seen, the original Wizard of Oz. It's just a movie that is a classic, but I've never wanted to watch. But I know quite a bit about it. I feel like most people know about this world. This movie does a good job of giving that world a lot of character and diving into a character like the Wicked Witch of the West is just supposed to be purely evil. There's nothing redeemable about her. And this movie is giving you the perspective of, hey, maybe she's got something to say. Maybe there's a reason why she is the way she is, and it's not just that she's pure evil and was born that way. I enjoyed it. I thought they had a lot of interesting things to say with this world and with this story. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? Now, I would say there are two different kinds of musicals, right? Now, if you like musicals, obviously you're going to like this movie. But if you don't know how to feel about musicals, there's some you like, some you don't. I would say there's two different kinds of musicals that go into movies. There's the first kind that is very much like Broadway, where the story is kind of taking a back seat to the talents of those performing in the story. It is about the people singing and dancing and the choreography, everything that goes into making the art of the music, and that is what the whole story is about. And the actual storytelling being done is just a medium in which to go from one song to the next fairly smoothly, but really you're here to listen to music. Now, there's another kind of musical in movies that it is more about the story, but the music is just a complement to the story being told. It is a way to hear the characters' thoughts or feelings on a situation without them having to directly say it in dialogue, where it might kind of sound janky or just not really right, or having a narrator. Now, if you don't want two of those things, you can just have music in which they can belt out how they feel, belt out their thoughts, and it kind of has this alternate reality where you can have deeper insights into a character in a different way with music. Now, I would say this movie is much more of the first style of musicals. It is about the talents of the people singing. It is about the choreography that is being done, the art of making the music, though the story in this movie is really good. I did enjoy it. It definitely took a back seat to the musical aspect of this movie, which obviously this is a Broadway play. It is going to be a Broadway style musical where most people who are coming to watch this movie just enjoy music a lot, and that's what makes it good. Obviously, if you like The Wizard of Oz, you're going to like this movie. If you have never seen it like me, or you don't know how to feel about it, if you enjoy cinematography, if you just enjoy watching a movie that has a lot of love in it, then I think you're going to like watching this movie. It is a movie that has a lot of love in it, and the story is interesting. There's a lot of good cinematical aspects to this movie. So if you can enjoy cinematic movies, then I think you can enjoy this one. Third is theme. What message or truth is a movie trying to convey? I felt the message of this movie was fairly obvious. I felt it was just to not judge a book by its cover. The whole point of this story is giving you more context to a character that you may think is purely evil, and by the end of this movie, with that context, you may have changed your opinion. You may not have, but I believe the whole point is to go, oh, I kind of understand now. I think that's a good message. I enjoy that message. I think it's a good thing to teach people that you don't know what it's like to be in somebody's shoes, and though they may not make all of the right decisions, that doesn't mean that they're purely a bad person just because they're a bad person. There may have been a lot of things that have gone on that have made them the way they are. I think it's a good lesson to learn. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversation? Now this is really, it's a musical. So musicals, they have a certain tone to them. There's a way that characters talk to them that I personally feel is never really that real. There's actors that you can clearly tell enjoy the format of a movie and the format of being on stage. And this dialogue is very much on stage, but that's on par. That's exactly what you would expect. I don't think there's anything bad with the dialogue at all. It just felt like a musical. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? Now, the acting throughout this movie is well done. There's nobody here that I complain about. There's nobody in the movie that I could not stand being on screen because they didn't feel like a real character. However, Ariana Grande as Galinda, she stole the show by far. I thought she did a terrific job. This is her genre. This is where she's meant to be. I mean, she is obviously a very talented, a very good singer and dancer. It's what she does for a living. But the actual cinematic aspect where she had to take on the role of another character, I thought she did a really good job. I thought she actually felt like a very different person, and she took on the personality traits of Galinda very well. I just thought she really stole the show. She was the one you wanted to see more of by the end of this movie. Sixth is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Now, cinematically, the looks of this movie were fantastic. I thought the actual setting in the world of Oz was amazing. You could tell the people who worked on this movie truly loved this world, and they wanted it to be bright and vibrant and full of life, and they did an amazing job. I love all of the colors. This is the kind of movie that if you're gonna buy it, you have to get it in 4K. You've got to get it in the most amazing format that you can, because it is so enjoyable to watch. And for somebody that does not like musicals, this was a huge help. I loved looking at all the colors. I thought all the settings were very well put together. All the sets were interesting. They gave you something to look at. Even if you didn't enjoy the dancing and the singing, you were still just looking at the setting. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. However, emotionally, it's really hard because a musical doesn't work for me. It really breaks apart the story being told. So I have a hard time connecting to these characters because they just don't feel real, because they're just singing out of nowhere. Now, if the singing seems somewhat, it flows into the story well, it seems well put together to where it makes sense to why that character is singing at the moment, then you can bring some more emotion in. But otherwise, when there's just random singing because it is a musical, it's hard to get emotionally invested in these characters because you just keep getting reminded that it's not real, which seems kind of silly. But when you're really into a movie, you get emotional because you feel those characters are real and you imagine going through what they're going through. But when you're reminded that they're not, it just kind of takes away from it. I will say there are a couple scenes that you feel bad for Elphaba. You feel bad for her being picked on. You feel like, man, this woman needs a friend, just one friend desperately. They did a good job at making you feel some pity for a character that maybe wasn't designed to have pity in the original story, but this story is allowing you to feel those things, and it worked. There were several times that I felt bad for this woman, and I wish that the situation was better for her, but otherwise there's not much emotion to be had. Seventh is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 40 minutes long. Now, it is a musical. It has a whole story to tell, a giant world to explain, and then add music on top of that, entire songs on top of that. It's going to be long. I knew that. I knew going into it was going to be a very long movie. I didn't know the runtime, but I figured it was well over 2 hours. It's still way too long. I did my best to be considerate about how much time the story was going to be, but I would say the last 30 minutes of this movie, I was ready for it to wrap up. I thought there was too many songs, but it is a music-heavy musical rather than a story-heavy, so I don't know. I complain about it because I don't enjoy musicals and I don't like music-heavy musicals. But if you do, then you probably love how long it is because you just want it to keep going. But personally, I felt it was just entirely too long. I would have liked it much better if they cut out about 20 minutes of this movie. 8th is soundtrack. Now, obviously, don't like musicals, so it's kind of hard to enjoy the music within a movie, but I did my best. I went into this movie going, okay, I'm going to try and really enjoy the music and think critically about the music. And I will say, personally, not knowing any of the songs before going to see this movie, I knew nothing about the Broadway show, I felt a lot of the songs didn't feel unique. There was way too many songs in this movie in the first place. I felt they should have chose fewer so they felt more different. There were several songs that I just kind of blended together. They weren't unique enough. I actually thought the ending song that I was told was supposed to be kind of the hard-hitting, the defining song of Wicked. I believe it's called Gravity. I did not think it was that good. I thought it was just okay. I really did not see it as this defining song of the movie. It didn't feel that unique. I thought the best song in this movie was Popular. I thought that song actually did feel like the story and did feel unique. I liked that it had this dynamic where it felt like a conversation being told, where they were writing in their journals and talking about one another. I thought it was just a unique song with good choreography and just felt different than everything else. Now, most of these songs I did feel were more about the person singing the song than the actual song itself or about the story. A lot of these songs I felt like were just a way for these actresses to brag about how well they can sing, how many octaves they can change, how long they can hold a note, how loud they can hold a note. I mean, I did not think they were singing for the story. It was just singing to show you how well they can sing. Some people who are into singing and know a lot about singing, I feel they're going to enjoy that. I did not for somebody who enjoys the story. 9th is directing. Now I feel the director is in charge of the previous 8 aspects. They're the ones that have to put it all together, give it their stamp of approval, and make a good movie. Now the director of this movie is John M. Chu, and this is his 8th movie that he's directed. The previous 7 movies he directed were Step Up 2, The Streets, Step Up 3D, G.I. Joe Retaliation, Gem and the Holograms, Now You See Me 2, Crazy Rich Asians, In the Heights, and finally Wicked Part 1. Now, this director, he's kind of interesting. He obviously has some faults. I don't think any of these movies are really well-renowned movies, but there's a couple in there that I've heard of that were good or just okay. Now, when it pertains to this movie, I feel he has a good handle on what the audience wants. He did what the audience was going to want. This is a huge Broadway show with a huge audience who was going to be very picky about how this movie was made, and I felt it had really good reception. People who I know who like musicals and have seen the original play of Wicked really enjoyed this movie and thought it was well done. I thought he made some good decisions under pressure. I mean, this was a movie that had to be done perfect to do well, and it seems like he did that pretty well. I felt all the love in this movie. I felt that this movie was made with care, with love, with a love for the art and a love for the audience. Appreciating that the audience was going to want things done to a high level and bringing it and performing at that high level. I thought he was a good director, and I'm looking forward to seeing the second part and what else he does with this story. 10th is time. Will it stand the test of time? Now, personally, it will not stand the test of time. I don't watch musicals. I would watch this movie again just because I did really enjoy some of the cinematic aspects of this movie, but it's just not something I'm yanking off the shelf and I'm looking forward to seeing again. However, there are a lot of people that I feel will really enjoy this movie, so I do think it will stand the test of time. It has a category for which it's going to be in the upper echelon of some of the best musicals ever made, but for me personally it doesn't, but I know it will for a lot of people. Now for the reviews section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it an 89, the audience gives it a 96, and IMDb gives it an 81. Now I understand if you really like musicals, this 96 and 89, like that's where you're gonna be. I do think for somebody who doesn't enjoy musicals doesn't mean I can't think about the perspective of somebody who does, and from the perspective of somebody who really enjoys musicals, this is a well done musical. There's a lot of love done into it. There's a lot of talent in this movie, and so 89, 96 is, I would say, probably on the money for somebody who really enjoys musicals. Now as somebody that doesn't, an 81 is a good place for me. I would say I'm a little higher, about 85, because I just try to compensate for my bias, but there are problems I have with this movie. There's a couple of things I don't enjoy, partly because of the music, partly because there's some things that aren't great about the story that could be better. But overall, it's a really good movie. There's really good aspects to it. I think it represents film in a really good way. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2024, out of 25 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 11th, just below Twisters and above Civil War. Now, something I did while ranking this movie was think about the fact that I would watch this movie again. What are my problems with it? Well, I don't love musicals all that much. I don't love all of the music, and I don't love how long it is. But if I were to watch it in my own home, I could skip through those things. I could skip through the songs that I don't love, or if I just don't want to listen to any songs, I could skip through all of them. And that would reduce my runtime quite a bit as well. And that is something I think I would do with this movie. I would watch it again for the story and just skip some of the musical aspects that I don't love. And that helps for me because I would watch this movie again. But I do have it below Twisters because Twisters is just, it's a easier watch by far. It just is a movie that scratches an itch for me. I mean, I am a guy, I do love watching some action-packed movies, and when I want to watch a movie about tornadoes, this movie performs. It doesn't do anything great, but it does exactly what it needs to do. It has good enough characters, it has a good enough story, it has enough destruction to keep me satisfied, and I just think those things are going to appeal to me more often than watching Wicked. Now, I do have it above Civil War because Civil War is another movie that was cinematically heavy. However, Wicked has a little bit more of a positive energy to it in a lot of ways. I really enjoyed the colors. I enjoyed the settings a lot more than Civil War. I just think it's somewhat of an easier watch emotionally than Civil War is. I just think there are a couple aspects to it I would prefer to watch before I pop in Civil War. Now, on the cinematic side, out of 25 total movies, it is going to be second, just below The Wild Robot and above Smile 2. Now, I do have it below The Wild Robot. It's not even really that close. The Wild Robot is an amazing movie. I thought it had a lot of love to it. I thought it looked amazing, but really what sets it above all the other movies is the emotional side. This is a movie that got me emotional. That is something that I feel is the most important when it comes to cinematography. If you can get me so invested into your movie that you're making me sad, that you're making me cry, that you're making me feel anxious, then you're doing exactly what I feel the art of cinema is supposed to do, and The Wild Robot did that. Wicked kind of suffered in that sense. It did a lot of things great, but it did not hook me emotionally. Now, I do have it above Smile 2 because Smile 2 did a lot of great things. It had a lot of good acting. I thought the story was really well done. I thought it was an interesting story. I thought it was a step up from the first Smile. But the emotional side, it did get me emotionally because it is scary, and I think it's scary to watch every single time. However, that is the single emotion that I don't put a lot of emphasis or weight on, because I don't think it's necessarily that hard to do. It's really hard to get me so invested that I'm crying, but it's not that hard to get people so scared that they're covering their eyes. That being said, there's not a ton of movies that do that well, but I just don't think it's something. I think making people scared is much easier than making people cry. And I think Wicked, as far as the art of cinematography goes, has a better, bigger story going on that is more compelling than Smile 2 is. It has a world that is very interesting, these characters that are very different, acting that is done really well. It is a beautiful movie to look at. These are all things that I just think it does well enough to outbeat Smile 2 as far as movies go as an art form. Now, for the decade of the 2020s, out of 27 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 12th, again below Twisters and above Civil War. It's below and above those movies for the exact same reason as before. Now, for cinematically, out of 27 total movies, it is going to be second, just below The Wild Robot and above Smile 2. Again, it is there for the exact same reasons as before. Now, all time, out of 39 total movies on the entertainment side, it is going to be 21st, again below Twisters and above Civil War. It's there for the same reasons as before. Now, cinematically, out of 39 total movies, again, it is going to be second, below The Wild Robot and above Smile 2. And it's there for the exact same reasons. I apologize. I have to get some more movies in here that are not from the year of 2024, but right now that's where we're at. And it's going to be staying in those positions, and it's going to be staying crunched between those two movies. That's all I've got for Wicked Part 1. Let me know what your thoughts were. This one was a hard one to judge. As somebody who doesn't like musicals, I have to try and step out of my shoes and understand what it's like for somebody to who does enjoy musicals watching this movie, because I believe that there is a big audience out there that does enjoy musicals, and I thought I was fairly fair with the fact that it is a movie that is done well, and if you like musicals, I feel you really will like this movie. But make sure you comment what your opinion is down below on this movie. I really enjoy having a conversation with you guys. I really enjoy listening to your guys' opinions and what you thought. Even if you don't comment that much, I really appreciate it when you comment on my videos, because I just enjoy having some interaction with you guys. It's the reason I started this channel. If you're interested in watching somebody who does the same format as me and also does the ranking in the same year, decade, and all time, go check out my best friend Bosso Movie Reviews. We've done some similar movies, but he's done quite a few more than me, and he honestly does value entertainment more, where I feel I value cinematography more, so his list is very different than mine. Otherwise, comment the next movie you want me to watch. Make sure you subscribe so that you can watch me review the movie that you commented. Otherwise, I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.